Hey guys, Dr. Jessica Finley.
And Dr. Jeff Finley here, and today our guest speaker is our dog, Ellie Mae. She wanted to be a part of the video today.
Our video series for the month of May will be all about the sun. We're going to be busting myths with research. Today we're going to be talking about optimal vitamin D levels and how to obtain them with what the research has to say. We're also going to talk about melanoma and your risk with sun exposure.
So what are our optimal levels when it comes to vitamin D? Now, vitamin D can be checked by a simple blood test. It can be just thrown in your routine work. But very important, vitamin D ideally should be between 40 to 60 nanograms per milliliter. That's what the research says is usually a pretty optimal range. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, let's say that your vitamin D level is a little low. All you need to do is supplement it, right? Get you right back into the range. Well, that may get you back into the range, but what they actually found is that vitamin D is more of a measure of health. So just by supplementing vitamin D, it's not actually going to improve your health, it's just going to improve your level. And in fact, this month, we're going to be talking about how the research talks that there's a lot of benefits to getting sunlight that cannot be replaced just by supplementing with vitamin D.
So, how do you obtain the optimal level of sun? This all depends on your skin type and where you live. For most of us, or those who live above 40 degrees latitude, we require about 2 to 3 days a week of non-burning sun exposure. Now, this is also without suntan lotion. Now, you should be out for about 15 to 20 minutes during the sunny months of the year. For most of us, the sunny months are between May and October. Now, if you don't burn easily or you have darker skin in general, you will require more time in the sun, likely around 30 minutes to 2 to 3 days per week. The best time to get sun is between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Now, if you caught what we said there, we did in fact say this is sun exposure without suntan lotion. But before everyone gets too crazy about that, we're going to touch on that a little bit later with Dr. Jessica. Let's talk about melanoma. I think all of us have at least heard at some point in our life that too much sun exposure leads to melanoma. This brings up the stereotypical person out in Florida sitting out there for every day, all day, that they end up getting skin cancer, specifically melanoma. But what if I told you that research actually shows that sunlight can prevent melanoma? That's right. Sunlight can prevent melanoma. Now, personally, when I first heard this information, it blew my mind. It went against everything that I've ever been told growing up. So how does this work? Well, essentially what the research found is that when you follow our recommendation that we talked about earlier, or they consider that to be chronic sun exposure, short bouts, multiple days a week, leaving it in optimal ranges, this can actually lead to a protective effect to prevent the occurrence of melanoma. Now, this is not to say that you can't get melanoma by having too much time in the sun. When you get burnt, this is what actually leads to a higher likelihood of getting melanoma. And ideally, if you're getting lots of sun in a short period of time, the perfect example is we go to the beach for a week for vacation, get fried, burnt to a crisp, and then we come home and sit inside all day, every day. This is where our problem lies. But if you allow yourself to be exposed to it in short bouts, it actually can be very protective.
Now, before everyone gets too crazy and goes around telling everyone that we don't recommend sunscreen, let's hit on one final point, and Dr. Jeff has kind of touched on it already. If you're going to be out in the sun for multiple hours per day, please use sunscreen. The problem that we run into is that when we go from no sun exposure to sitting on the beach for an entire week, we all do this during vacation, right? This is where your risk of melanoma actually goes up. When we get short-term high sun exposure, that leads to burning. Lastly, if you're going to use sunscreen, make sure it's non-toxic and at least 30 SPF.
So, as always, we're going to be putting out a new video each week, and all of this month we're going to be busting myths about sun exposure and your risk and benefits from having sun exposure or optimal vitamin D levels. So be sure to tune in every week this month for more information now that we finally have sun. Lastly, as we hit with the sunscreen, if you have a favorite non-toxic sunscreen that you like to use, we'd love to hear about it. We're going to be sharing our favorite one later this week or in a different video. Talking about what are the benefits of non-toxic sunscreens and how can they be beneficial when you need to use them. So like, comment, share, and as always, we'll talk to you again next week.